It's still the morning show here on Rise News, and now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Amid the ongoing labor dispute with the government over a new national minimum wage, the National Economic Council has held in Abuja with President Bola Tinubu attending. At the end of the meeting, the council was silent on the new national minimum wage proposals. State House correspondent Adesua Omoran reports.
Today's National Economic Council meeting was highly anticipated, primarily due to the contentious issue of a new national minimum wage. The lengthy session saw an unusual appearance by President Bola Tinubu, who is constitutionally not a member of the body. It comes after he promised to consult further with state governors over the pending minimum wage dispute before sending a bill to the National Assembly. There were high hopes that significant decisions will be made regarding the minimum wage, which has been a point of heated debate and negotiations. But at the conclusion of the meeting, there was an unexpected turn of events.
And I also make it a point of notice that there won't be any questions.
Journalists were informed they would not be allowed to ask questions, while no mention was made of the minimum wage. However, following the briefing, an official statement was made available by the presidential spokesperson, Ajuri Ngelale. He revealed the president's approval of the immediate rollout of the National Construction and Household Support Program during the meeting. It includes a 10 billion naira allocation for buses and a 50,000 naira uplift grant for 100,000 families per state for the next 3 months. The program also allocates 155 billion naira for the distribution of assorted food items across the country. The initiative aims to boost agricultural productivity and provide economic relief for Nigerians. Key projects under the program include the Sokoto-Badagry Highway and the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. The Sokoto-Badagry Highway is prioritized for its strategic importance, traversing states crucial to Nigeria's agricultural sustainability, according to the statement. Well, it adds that the president emphasized the urgency of boosting food production. Additionally, the Economic Council discussed progress in updating and improving the National Social Register used for direct digital payments to beneficiaries in need.
That process has been strengthened and it now needs speeding and scaling up given the situation in the country as far as the inflation and elevated prices. And the governors agreed that they would accept the verified register, which they themselves have verified down to the ward level.
It also came to light that during the meeting, several committees made submissions, including that of the natural disaster mitigation, crude oil theft, and management, among others.
Today, additional recommendation was also submitted, and the National Economic Council took judicious note of all recommendations, and while implementing the immediate measures, has requested for us to come with a final report that will serve as a permanent solution to the incident of crude oil thefts in Nigeria.
By profiling recommendation on how best we can prepare and respond to 2024 rainy season. It will interest you to know that today the committee have submitted its report with recommendations to the council, and I'm happy to let you know that the council has approved the recommendations, and Mr. President is quite happy about the report, and he has promised to look into the report with its recommendations for immediate implementations.
The country now waits with bated breath to see the outcome of this meeting. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
All right, thank you, Adesua. Rufai, your take on this story. A number of things to discuss, outcomes from the NEC meeting, but very importantly, I think what people might have assumed would be discussed would be the minimum wage and the direction thereof.
And that's very shocking in itself, Steve, because the biggest deal breaker will have been the minimum wage. how you can inject a new minimum wage into the economy that will bring about some level of financial viability, because you need people to spend money in this economy. So any of your palliative schemes that you're having, 3.6 families across 36 states
In 3 months, yeah.
in 3 months, it's not as weighty as you having a proper minimum wage. And I just hope this announcement will be properly executed. Because they had done this before. Sharing food items for some states did it. What was the effect of it? So you need something sustainable and not just ideas in the air. So I think it was largely insensitive. And I think the talk by some of the state governors in their hitherto meeting about the fact that they should push the minimum wage conversation back to the state, I think it's a no-brainer. Because when it's easy for them, they take the easy way around. So they want the minimum wage conversation, the state should negotiate a minimum wage. It's not constitutional. The government has negotiated this, or they will negotiate this and will bring about the price, and you must be forced to pay. There was never a time in this country that states could pay salary. Even if you called minimum wage 10,000 naira, some states will not still pay it. There was never a time most states were viable, so that argument is a flawed argument. They're just looking for excuses. When minimum wage was 13,000, they couldn't pay. When it was 18,000, they couldn't pay. When it was 30,000, they couldn't pay. So there is never a time these governors will ever come out and say the states are productive, because most of them fritter away the wealth of the states in all sorts of loans and exorbitant projects that do not relate to the hopes and aspirations of the people. Almost all of them want to have an airport. Even Ebonyi, that is just 20 minutes away from the Enugu airport, had an airport. It's just 20 minutes away by road from the Enugu airport, international airport. They still want to build their own airports. So now they're saying they can't pay their workers. They must be able to fix it. Many other things too were talked about. Yes, I like the capital injection in CNG, but where are the buses they had promised before in the initial CNG plan? They also talked about agricultural produce. They're talking to Tata and John Deere. They want to have 2,000 tractors of mechanization. Yes. But I would have also loved the case where it's not just about Tata and John Deere. Can we get the likes of Innocent and North to build capacity for those tractors so the money can stay with it? That's how you grow an economy, not by taking the money out again. They say they're talking to Saudi Arabia as regards 200,000 tons of red meat. That's a good one. If we can get it out, that's good. But if you want to get 200,000 tons of red meat, you've got a ranch. You can't be pushing nomadic because farming all around and be carrying cattle from here to Kutuwenji because it's going to affect the quality of the meat. Then they talked about other approaches, sensitization, food supply to people and all of that. Yeah, those are palliative measures. But the long thinking should be how we can reduce this over 11% inflation that is really hurting out there in the economy. And the insensitivity of the executive, because at the same time, Mr. Akpabio is now bragging that nobody can stop him from not approving the presidential jet at a time where we are suffering, which is the height of insensitivity anybody can ever have in the world.
All right, Dr. Bati.
Okay. The National Economic Council met yesterday. That body, the vice president, is the chairman of that body in the Constitution. That's the only major role assigned to the vice president of Nigeria, who is, in real terms, an assistant to the president of Nigeria. I see that the papers have made big weather out of the fact that the president attended the meeting. Now, the president, under Section 5, the president of Nigeria is a monarch. He oversees everything. Until we change the constitution, I don't see why some people are saying, why was the president at the meeting? Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution gives President of Nigeria powers to delegate responsibilities. And to that extent, even the Vice President, as chairman of the National Economic Council, is operating in a delegatory capacity. Number two is the fact that the President, after the report of the Tripartite Wage Committee was submitted to him, said he was going to have consultations. So it may also be said, for the benefit of those who are raising issues about the presence of the president at that meeting yesterday, that, well, that may be part of the consultation process. However, I consider it unfortunate, insensitive, that National Economic Committee meeting met. A committee that is made up principally of the governors and other principal officers of government, that they did not discuss minimum wage issue, which is a major issue on the table. And when they briefed the press, they went to Afghanistan. Here, one of the quietest, most unnoticed, absent-minded ministers in the cabinet was the one who led the briefing of the press. And they were talking about agriculture. So they left the more important subject about national minimum wage. The law itself had expired in April. This is June. The president himself, okay, I gave him some slack. I said he went there, maybe there will be some consultation from the governors. They left that subject. They were discussing tractors, contracts that Nigeria is going to give to some companies, Deere and whatever. 2,000 tractors to be supplied this year and to be supplied for the next 5 years. Nigerians are asking, fix our wages. They are talking about tractors. I think it's a scandalous report that we had from those people who had the courage to come and speak to us. However, those tractors, again, the second point is they are talking 5 years. The tenure of this administration is 4 years. Why is it that everybody comes around and they try to tie the hands of the next administration? Nigerians have not decided that Tinubu will spend 5 years. The mandate that he has is 4 years. They should pay attention to that. The other thing that they brought up was about Niger Delta Power Holding. Niger Delta Power Holding, we are now told, 6 governors will now be on the board. These 6 governors will come from the 6 geopolitical zones. I think it's also a scandal that we're just talking about constituting the board for the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. So it's late, but it's okay. Now they say 6 governors will be there. But the ordinary Nigerian, for the benefit of common sense, what we expect is the difference that will make if the governors are there. Now, on the side of it, we were told that the same governors who were tongue-tied at the NEC meeting, National Economic Council meeting, who did not really talk about wages, they had their own meeting. And the report, I think in this day newspaper, said, okay, they arrived at a number of resolutions that they will give Nigerian workers better wages, and that they support the Women Affairs Ministry, the efforts by what's her name again?
Honorable Uju
Kennedy Ohaneye. Uju Kennedy Ohaneye. Yeah, that's her name.
Barrister.
No. Barrister is not a title. They tell people every time at law school graduation, don't go about saying you're a barrister. But nobody listens to the law school authorities. Everybody is a barrister. Maybe one of these days we'll start saying, I'm Uncle Ruben Abati.
I think I like the sound of that. I definitely love it.
But in any case, they said, they are supporting the project. Uju Ohaneye wants to scale up the project for gender equality, gender empowerment. And I think that, in all of this conversation, perhaps the most intelligent thing that came out from all these meetings that they held yesterday.
Well, it's the most intelligent thing because money is involved. I don't know how many of the governors have demonstrated any interest in promoting gender equality until money is now involved in terms of the scaling up program. So that's interesting that all of a sudden they're all saying that it should be, at subnational levels because they're the ones who are the, that are closest to the people, which is true. But to be honest, how many of the governors have in their agenda taken gender equity or gender equality very seriously in terms of pursuing that? So just to mention that, but anytime there's money, everybody then rushes to the ministry and says, oh, we are here. Don't forget the governors, we're closest to the people. But that aside, let's talk about the national minimum wage conversation. Now, if you recall, one of the things that organized labor has said consistently since the announcement of this negotiation, even prior to it, is that the government hasn't demonstrated good faith or seriousness in terms of seeing this matter as urgent. Because we remember that as long as the people keep earning the old minimum wage now that the laws ended since April, things have gone, higher. Prices of goods, inflation is higher, yet the people still have maintained the old salary they were paid when things were cheaper and easier on Nigerians. These are the conversations that should be pertinent to the government. But one of the things I might say is that perhaps the reason why the first instance, what they're doing is announcing these, what I will use the word very loosely, palliative measures in terms of, cash transfers, talking about the social register, food distribution, investment in agriculture, ensuring that Nigerians have access to food and hopefully cheaper food, is that the government in its negotiations has said that accept this amount of money whilst we also ensure that other sides of the economy or in terms of welfare for workers are being handled. So this is what else. Maybe that's the reason why they've come out with this first as a way to, as a way to just help to cushion the effect whilst they continue the conversation on national minimum wage. But this is not enough for the people. It's good to offer palliatives or a safety net for people, but what people want is independence and the ability to have purchasing power to look after their families and not be dependent on handouts by the government, which unfortunately in the past we've seen has not been very transparent. So the intended do not actually benefit fully from these actions. So why not ensure that people have a take-home package that can truly take them home? Whilst, yes, you want to sort them out because in the immediate people need some form of injection and support, but it's important that this conversation is seen to be had consistently and is set to be on the front burner so that Nigerian workers do not feel like they're being taken for granted by the government. This has been the constant conversation. This has been the constant angst of organized labor, that they are not having these conversations. The president at the FEC earlier this week didn't have it on the agenda. NEC meeting didn't have it on the agenda. So what is the hope for the plight of the Nigerian worker? So that's what we keep on talking about, that there must be a show, a demonstration of seriousness and the fact that this is important. It is, and we are talking about it daily to reach a resolution. Again, I've mentioned time and time again about the power and importance of communication. One of the criticisms of how President William Ruto handled the protests by the young people in Kenya is that he might have been able to handle it better if there was dialogue, if he communicated better with the people, and we might not see the outcome that we've seen in Kenya. We had to borrow a leaf from that. The government must be willing and able to communicate to the people regularly, updating us, until a decision is reached. I think that's very important.